Time now for our rants and raves, starting with you, Dan. What do you got?
I have a rant for BuzzFeed, which announced this week that they are reneging on a deal to accept more than $1 million in advertising from the Republican National Committee because they don't want to do anything that would help Donald Trump. Now, I do think that the media have to be very careful about not getting into a false equivalency situation with Trump, because there are some unique things about him that need to be pointed out over and over. But I do think a news organization's advertising platform really should be open for any kind of speech, as long as it's not illegal activity.
Plus, aren't they shooting themselves in their foot?
Well, they are, but they're standing on principle. I'm just not quite sure what the principle is here.
I have to agree with that. All right, Callie.
Well, I have a rant for fellow reporters who don't understand how journalism works. So, New York Times reporter Yamiche Alcindor was covering at a press conference with Bernie Sanders. It was before the last elections, the last primaries, and she asked a question this way. Many women are wondering if it is sexist of you to stay in the race because, Hillary Clinton's a woman and you won't get out because, she's a woman and this is sexist. He took umbrage to it. His right. He's the candidate. He can come back at her as he wants to. She's not offended by that. That's the nature of the beast. Bernie Sanders supporters got mad. Okay, no problem. She's just okay with that. But you do not expect to hear from an assignment editor from Florida, Jason Kelly of WFTV, who writes in a tweet that it was a dumb question and unprofessional, after which Yamiche Alcindor wrote back, well, apparently you don't know how journalism works. And then he said something else, and she said, well, why don't you get on the campaign trail, and then you can say what people are doing. Anyway, they ended up having to call his boss because he wouldn't respond. And the boss said it was inappropriate for him, we won't be surprised by this, to be tweeting.
What if she had simply said to Bernie Sanders, she did couch it. She said, people are saying
Yeah, because
this.
she
If
was
she had
asking
said,
the question.
Isn't it sexist of you to stay in the race? Would that have been dumb?
Well, I'm not even, not to me, but I'm not even characterizing it. Her point was she was trying to represent people who had asked the question. And he can be mad about it, and other supporters can be mad about it, but that's the question that's out there. That's what I'm trying to get to. And in fact, as I mentioned, I've heard that question before. At first I thought, oh, that's interesting. And then I thought, oh, well, okay. But the point was, she's accustomed to their being mad, but for this guy to be tweeting about it, he's now been asked to take down all of his Instagram, everything. He shut it all down, and his boss said he shouldn't have been saying anything, particularly from his role. But I think it's crazy that a fellow journalist would not understand a question to ask. You can say, if it's inaccurate, okay, and her point was, you're not on the campaign trail with me. You don't know what's being said to me. I do. What are you talking about? Anyway.
All right, Shirley.
I am part of this organization called Livingston's Awards, and I'm one of the judges. And past week, we just gave out 3 awards, and it's called the Pulitzer Prizes for young journalists, for journalists under 35. And I've been doing it for 5 years, and we awarded 3 awards, local, national, and foreign. And what amazes me is every year when I'm doing the judging, and there are all these headlines about how bad the future of journalism is, but we continue every year have incredibly talented journalists who do incredible work, and I'm just always buoyed by all the good work that comes out of them. And also, what's really interesting is that they're not just coming from traditional media outlets. A lot of them are from upstart organizations. Also, they go out and get their own funding from nonprofits, from journals and nonprofits, and they go out and take the initiative to do projects on their own. So it's a rave for the future of the industry.
So Livingston, and they award it. I mean, because I remember we had a local connection. It could be electronic or newspaper.
TV. It's one of the few, awards where you judge across platforms. So it's radio, TV, digital now, and newspaper.
I just judged an Emmy competition for investigative reporting in either Cleveland or Cincinnati, and it was 8 weeks ago, and I can't remember which. It was fantastic. I was really, really really impressed.
I was
with
always
the
impressed
quality.
when I was in the jury of the DuPont Columbia because that's what you would see, and
Yeah.
even just some local Emmys, recently
Yeah, that's-
from across the country were good.
All right, Tom.
I'll try to make this
Yeah.
quickly. I have a rant about the Rhode Island Supreme Court. Essentially, this was a few weeks ago, but I fear that this thing will get picked up. There was a case that was in the news quite a bit where the former governor of Rhode Island, Lincoln Chafee, and his 18-year-old son had a party. The 18-year-old son had a party. A young girl, an underage girl who drank at that party, ended up getting injured, being hospitalized. There was an investigation into this, a state police investigation into this, and the Providence Journal tried to get access to the case report, and they refused to do it, saying it was a privacy issue. And ultimately, the Supreme Court supported that, saying that you have to show that this was of public interest. The Providence Journal would have had to been able to show why this mattered, and in effect, the barrier now is before you can get public records, you have to be able to tell why those public records are important, which of course
That's
is
crazy. All right. Well, I have a rant this week for a story we did last week about Gawker refusing to pay the settlement to Hulk Hogan. Well, now Gawker has filed Chapter 11, and Nick Denton, its owner, it's really a shell game because they're putting the site up for sale for some outrageous amount of money. There's no sympathy lost here, no. But I mean, there are a lot of people who my daughter, for instance. I mean, there are a lot of people who follow that site, whether you think it's tasteful or whatever. But I mean, this is skirting an issue. I mean, true, the lawsuit was backed by this guy, this billionaire, PayPal founder, Peter Thiel, I guess it is, and that wasn't right either. But going belly up, there's got to be a better way. We've seen it happen before. I guess it's going to happen again. But my rant is directed at Gawker. I just don't feel that sympathetic for them. Do you guys?
I would agree, totally agree with that.
And they
Yeah,
didn't
that's
go
right, they
belly
didn't.
up. They'll
No,
probably be
they're
around
gonna
for
end
some
up
time to
making
come.
money.
Yeah, they're going
Yeah.
to make
Site-
money. I think the sale is like they're expect $250 million to $350 million. This is just a way to not
hide
pay-
their assets.
Not,
Right.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
exactly.
Hide their assets.
All right. Well, that is it for our show. Tell us what you think. Email us, tweet us, or leave a comment. We're always on at beatthepress.org.